The Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program is mandated by the Connecticut General Statutes and the Federal Older Americans Act to protect the health, safety, welfare, and rights of residents of nursing homes and residential care facilities. Regional ombudsmen recruit and train volunteer resident advocates who visit nursing homes in their community and assist residents in resolving quality of life and quality of care issues. All ombudsman activities are performed on behalf of and at the direction of residents. All communications with residents or their family members or legal guardians is held in strict confidentiality. Advocates undergo an in-depth training to enable them to support quality of life and quality of care for nursing home residents.
The work in the volunteer program is important because you are doing a vital service not only for the resident, but for the nursing home. You get a sense of accomplishment when you can try and figure out, how do I act as a conciliator to accomplish what needs to be accomplished, in this case in the nursing home. And that's been the most satisfactory part of my education since I became a volunteer.
I would go in and introduce myself as the volunteer as an advocate. They'd say, "What's that?" And luckily I had some brochures which I was able to pass out to them, showing them what their rights are and what a reasonable advocate does.
I remember going to the first resident council meeting and explaining to them what I was there for, and that I was there for them, that I was not a paid member of the staff, that I was strictly there for their concerns and their well-being.
As you know, resident council is the voice of the residents. And to me, it's one of the most important things that happens every month with the residents, because they come in here with their hopes, with their problems, with positive things to say, with negative things to say, and hopefully they're looking for something to happen as they say how they feel about things.
The more people that participate, obviously the bigger the voice you have, the more likelihood of it being successful. The problem is we don't have a resident-operated resident council. We don't have a president, vice president, secretary.
I don't think I was here more than 2 weeks before I decided that I should start looking for people and find a president, get things organized. After about 7 or 8 months of that, I was getting nowhere. I mean, I had asked several people. When this sheet came out on this new legislation and said, I don't see how we can do anything with this. The petition has to be signed by or circulated by the council, and there's nobody to circulate it. And then it finally dawned on me that this personal needs allowance increase was going to be really interesting for most of the folks that obviously that are on Title 19. And that if I could explain this reasonably, I might be able to show them why there's a real point in being organized and getting this, getting a president and getting their own voice heard, and that they would, in fact, if they had a president, they would be able to actually add their voice to the total. So it worked. By the time people were wheeling their wheelchairs out at the end of the meeting, we had 2 volunteers and we got 1 more later. And at the next meeting, we'll elect the president.
One of the very good examples of how a resident council can work has to do with the means of transportation that we were able to get. It started with a resident at a council meeting saying, why isn't there any transportation for us to move about and get out sometimes from the home? And the recreation director explained that she's tried desperately to find a service that was not too expensive, and so far she had not been successful because they had to come from or far away, and they would charge from the time they left to the time they came back, etc. And I heard this, and I decided that maybe there was a possibility, because I noticed that there was a van, wheelchair access, and it was used for senior citizens when they had to go to doctor appointments or shopping and they couldn't get around. And I noticed that the van wasn't used all the time. And my attitude in life has always been, you can ask for something, and if it's no, well, it's no worse than it was to begin with, and it might be yes. And so I went into the first selectman's office, and he was very, very friendly in terms of wanting to do something about the situation. And then he said he would take it up on a trial basis with the Board of Selectmen, and they decided they would for 3 months. It has worked out really wonderfully. The town is very happy that they're doing it for us, and the nursing home is very happy that we're being able to do this, and the residents are very happy about having a chance to go outside.
Okay. Now if you want to take your seatbelt off.
But the residents were complaining that when they had company, people had no place to sit. When I first came into my nursing home, the resident council wasn't much of anything. They had their meetings at 10 in the morning. So I would come in at 9:30 and I would have to go to people's rooms and say, are you coming to the meeting? Are you coming to meeting? And people weren't even out of bed yet. They hadn't had their meds. They weren't dressed. They weren't ready. So participation at the meeting was just about nothing. And it took me a good 3.5 years before we got to get the time of the meeting changed so that more people could belong. And now it's like night and day from when I started 5 years ago. The president and the vice president lead the meeting. They make sure that things get resolved because they bring it back time and time and time again. We have many more people who participate, and they're not afraid to speak up anymore.
There was a Breaking the Bond seminar,
Yes.
in I believe it was in 1998.
Yes.
And when they gave that presentation, they talked more about community, the nursing home as a part of a community.
Right.
About how, and I like that concept because, like in most nursing homes, and I'm trying to work on that right now, they have east wing, north wing, south wing, you know, and they figured it would be much better if it would be North Main, South Main, or East Main Street, more like a community. And when they talked at the memorial service, that really made an impression upon me. I don't know how it affected you, but
It did affect me. It
so,
did. Affected all of
yeah,
us.
And I couldn't wait to get back to the resident council to speak about this. I asked them, would they, that, life is a precious thing, and that wouldn't you like to be remembered? And it was unanimous. All of them says, certainly would like to be remembered. We also now send invitations out to the family,
That's
members.
wonderful.
And it made such an impression that, we share, the residents are able to share memories of the deceased person.
One of the cases that I handled, which is kind of an interesting one, involved a man in his late 40s suffering from MS. It shows that we don't have only elderly people in the home. Although, come to think of it, I'm called elderly. I'm not elderly. I don't think my definition of elderly isn't the same as everybody else's. But this man was very helpless. I mean, completely helpless. He could speak. I made it a habit of getting to know him as I went through the home every time, and I'd always call him, and he very seldom had any complaints. Everything was fine. But this one Monday morning I went in, and I saw his roommate. His roommate came over to me and said, Bob, Doug had a real problem yesterday, Sunday. I said, what was it? He said, well, nobody came when he pushed his call button. Nobody came for 45 minutes, which is, that's an eternity for somebody in his condition. So I said, well, I'll make sure that nothing like that happens again. I'll tell you right now, there's no excuse for that. So Doug said, thank you. So I went in to see the head administrator, and he immediately said, after I told him the story, he said, well, I agree with you, Bob. There's no excuse for that at any time, with anybody. I said, well, now that we're on the subject, this occurs in other areas of the home, and most people don't want me to mention their name in connection with this, but this may give us an opportunity to bring it up on a general basis. On my following visits, the next few weeks, I'd find out whether anybody had a problem with the CNAs answering calls. As a result of that, I was able to identify a number of areas where they were having problems, and I went back to the administrator, and he said, Bob, I'll take care of it. And I believe that we had probably a 90% improvement over the problem, the call button answering problem.
From an administration point of view, it's invaluable to get all the help that you can from any source that you can get it from. Running a nursing home is very difficult. It's a 24/7 business, and residents have a lot of needs, and so do their families. And if you can get someone from the outside who's another set of eyes and ears to really take a look at what's happening and make some constructive suggestions, then I think that that's wonderful. And that's why our relationship with the resident advocate has turned out to really be a win-win situation, not just for administration, but also for the resident advocate program, and above all, the residents, and that's really what it's all about.
Along with the assessing and helping the needs on a daily basis for the resident, there's other aspects of this program that need to be addressed, and I tended to get involved because of my involvement in politics. I'm an elected official, and I got to meet a lot of the state elected officials and local officials. One issue came up just last year, and it had to do with the staffing of the CNAs. And I got involved in going up to Hartford, testifying, meeting with the legislators, and telling them how important it was for the CNAs to have this extra training. And we increased it from 75 hours to 100 hours.
I have met with the residents and listened to their concerns and spoken to them about the proposed bills before the General Assembly, and they had expressed an interest in being able to send their thoughts on to their state representatives and state senators. So I have helped them compose a letter. The president of the Resident Council has sent this letter out on behalf of himself and all the residents of not just his council, but all of the whole state, to support the bills that are before the General Assembly that pertain to the elderly. And because it's really not possible, because of transportation issues for them to travel any distance to be able to present these, I have been asked by them and have in the past presented issues at the General Assembly for them.
And Bill asked me to read a short statement from him today. And also, those of us that know Bill probably know that.
Next day, I came into the facility after making this speech, and a couple of them had caught me on TV, so they knew it really happened. I had really done it.
These issues are prioritized, and once they're prioritized, we as a group try to get them on the agenda of the legislators. And sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not, but we don't give up on them. We just keep bringing them back, and we try to pick away and bring them back to the forefront. And they know that as long as someone like myself is there to stand behind them and protect them in any way possible, they'll empower themselves, because I found that the elderly aren't bashful when they know that they can count on you.
Do you have the necessary qualities to influence and improve the quality of care and quality of life of Connecticut's nursing home residents? Can you attend a 5-day intensive training program? Can you commit yourself to 4 hours per week for 1 year? Can you attend monthly training meetings? If you answered yes to these questions, contact the Long-Term Care Ombudsman in your region of the state at 1-866-388-1888 to request a volunteer resident advocate application and to find out when the next scheduled training session will be conducted. The Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program needs you.
To be a conciliator, and on the other hand, to be strong and make everybody know that you're here first and foremost for the residents.
I think anyone who gets involved in this program, you're getting involved because you want to do some good or give something back to the community.
This is really the voice of the people, and we still have a long way to go, but we've come a long way, and I feel so good about it.
Once I got positioned in the nursing home that I'm in, I like you, I mean, I found it to be so rewarding.
And I always go home from there feeling that I have made a difference, and I have made a contribution, and that they have made a tremendous contribution to my life too, because they kind of make the sunshine for me.